families, communities, our communities, your communities. It's just not a seat at the table for them. You know, they want a team that reflects the country, and they really expect you to speak up, not just to sit there and listen, but they'll turn to you and be like, what do you think? You know, for the people you represent, for the values you represent, does this speak to them? Are we doing right by them? And it's really about setting a tone, not just the conversation, but of leadership of what we need now. And I think that's what you're going to hear today from a really accomplished group. You know, I think too often we ask ourselves in these elections, what are we willing to do to win? And it's about, you know, we got to register voters, we got to go out there. But a lot of the mobilization persuasion is really asking, what are we willing to lose? You know, the very idea that brought us, our families, to this country, the very things that have allowed us to build the lives that we have been to, been part of the fabric of our country in so many different ways. And so remind people of that. You know, I think all of you are, by virtue of being on this call, have taken that step, and you're the best, most persuasive people to go out there and make the case, remind people what their power is, and that's their vote. You can't take that away. So just make sure you have a plan to vote, and you're out there, you're talking to your network, your friends, your family. At the end of this call, we're going to have a really great opportunity to sort of put that into action. But just to remember, you matter, this community matters, and your vote matters. And just, you know, that's what we really need to keep hammering in the last few days here. But again, just very grateful for all of you to be here to join us today. I'm going to turn it over to Shamaruk Mohiuddin now. She's an amazing person, brings a wealth of experience in politics and international relations. She currently serves as senior advisor to the US-Bangladeshi Advisory Council, where she's worked both on the bilateral relationships between the countries, but really trying to mobilize the Bangladeshi American community to be more active politically. And she's fantastic. She's been putting a lot of effort into this event here today. And I think you're going to hear a great conversation from people who just know these issues and really know the community. So Shamaruk, I'll turn it over to you, and just thank you everyone again for being with us.
Thank you, Vinay, for the kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to have Vinay open this event. He has one of the toughest jobs as a speechwriter for a candidate for president. So I really thank him for making the time to be here today. As Vinay mentioned, I'm Shamaruk Mohiuddin, serving as a senior advisor for the US-Bangladesh Advisory Council. A little bit about the council. It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization working on promoting US-Bangladesh relations and working to support the engagement and representation of Bangladeshi Americans in political and civic organizations, as well as advising on US policy towards Bangladesh. I'm really excited to join today and co-host this really important discussion with the Biden campaign. And we hope that we can learn a bit more about the candidate. I know that all of you have been following the election really closely, and also discuss how the administration, if we have a Biden administration, would lead on the issues of concern for Bangladeshi Americans, why we all need to get together and mobilize the vote. So you'll have a chance to hear from people who work closely with Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, as well as powerful Bangladeshi American women who have been running for public office and are making a difference in their communities. And one of the reasons I support this ticket is that I feel that both Vice President Biden and Senator Harris know that diversity makes this nation stronger. They recognize that we're most successful as a nation when we have people from all races and all ethnicities, all walks of life feel like they belong and are integrated into the fabric of society. I myself I'm a first generation immigrant. I've lived in this country for 20 years. I call this country my home. Like many of you, I've been contributing to the economy, volunteering for my community, paying taxes, but I've never felt as alienated as I have in the last 4 years. And I really feel at this point we need leadership guided by decency and knowledge and humility and empathy and all of those things. We need people who recognize that immigrants are not a problem. They, in fact, are driving innovation in America, and that we are a land of immigrants. So I feel that Senator Harris's story, for example, is our story too. We need leaders who help regain US respect around the world as well, which is something I care about. And we need to renew our commitment to making this a democratic nation again. And also we need every bit of support from all of you, the community, the Bangladeshi American community, and we'll be discussing a lot of these issues today. So in terms of format, we'll be having two panels. The first panel focused on foreign policy issues and immigration issues and other policy issues of concern to Bangladeshi Americans. And the next panel will focus a bit more on domestic issues and why it's important to mobilize the vote. So no matter which candidate you have been supporting in this election cycle, I think we all have one thing in common, is that we hope that there will be a fair and just and equitable society. So I hope that you'll all engage even after this conversation, because there will be a get out the vote effort focused on Michigan. So let me begin by first thanking a few people. Farooq Mehta, who's been pivotal in helping pull this event together. And for all the people who've been participating in getting out the word for this event, and of course, all the panelists who are here with us today. So I'll introduce our first panel. We have Ambassador Dan Mosina, who served as the former US Ambassador to Bangladesh under the Obama administration. He recently retired and ended his 38-year foreign service career and is now very active on issues around Boko Haram. I have to mention that he's extremely well-traveled in Bangladesh and understands the country and the culture really well. So we're really happy to have him here today. Then we have Ambassador Richard Verma, who served as US Ambassador to India from 2014 to 2017, also under President Obama, and has really been credited for deepening US-India relationship. He's also been advising Vice President Biden for a long time and worked with him in the Senate when he was chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Last but not least, of course, we have Farooq Mehta, who's a senior advisor for Muslim engagement for the Biden campaign. Previously, Farooq served in the Obama administration as the senior advisor in the Department of Defense. He's a lawyer by training and an expert on issues relating to Middle East and South Asia. And he also co-founded the organization Engage, which is a Muslim American civic organization. So first off, let me just start by asking each of our panelists to say a little bit about yourself and why you think this election is so important and why you care about this ticket. So we'll go to Ambassador Mosina first, and then Ambassador Verma, and then Farooq.
Shamarouk, thank you very much, and thanks for organizing this event. It's an honor to be here with you and Ambassador Verma and Farooq Mehta. And I'm especially pleased to know that there are so many Bangladeshi Americans who are tuning into this. I'm guessing that I've met many of them because when I was ambassador, I did nearly a dozen outreach trips all around America to the diaspora. And so I got to know quite a few Bangladeshi Americans. I served twice as a representative, a personal representative of the Obama-Biden administration. And from that experience, I know, and this is why I'm here today, I know that Joe Biden understands that America is most secure, America is most prosperous when America is leader of the free world. That's the most important thing that the Biden-Harris administration will bring in terms of foreign policy. And this leadership, it doesn't come from being a great big bully. We know how far bullyism takes us on the global stage. American leadership doesn't come from having the biggest bombs. No. Our leadership, America's leadership, comes from garnering the global respect for American values, global respect for American integrity, and that is what Biden and Harris administration will be. Biden-Harris administration will shift our global engagement to one of cooperation, one of partnership with our allies and our friends like Bangladesh. So that's why I'm here today. That's the quick answer to this. Under Biden-Harris administration, America will again turn to diplomacy. Diplomacy. I've practiced this for 38 years. America will turn to diplomacy to foster American leadership on the global stage.
Thank you, Ambassador Mosina. We'll go to Ambassador Verma.
Yeah, Shamarouk, thank you, and thanks to everyone for being here. Look, I've known Joe Biden for 20 years. I got to work with him in the Senate. I've seen him interact with members of the South Asian community, Indian Americans, Bangladeshi Americans, Pakistani Americans. There's no more decent, caring, understanding person. In addition, he's a foreign policy leader. He's a giant in the field. And I know, having watched firsthand, he would reinvigorate our ties with South Asia and Bangladesh in particular. And again, again, we don't have to guess what his record would be like. We've seen that up close and personal. And he is exactly the right person at this time. And I just think about my own family story, my parents coming here, 50 years ago, and I was able to go back to India to represent the United States. We want that story to be available for everyone, not just for certain classes of people. We need the America that my parents came here, that allowed me to pursue my dreams, and all the people on this call are wanting that kind of America as well. And I know the Biden-Harris ticket stand for that. So I'm really excited about this election. I think it's super important, and we'll do everything we can in the coming weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Verma. Farouk?
Yeah, just, in agreement with everything that was said, but when Joe Biden said that we're in the battle for the soul of this country, I took that very seriously. I mean, we need a president that can heal, that can bring this country together, which is so divided right now, which can really address a lot of the systematic inequalities that we have, and really hopefully beat a guy who won the presidency on the backs of immigrants. And that includes Muslim Americans, Bangladeshi Americans, but many other minority communities. And we really need a change and to go back to a sense of normalcy in this country so we can tackle the challenges that lie ahead of us, not just domestically, but even in global competitiveness. And I think Joe Biden is the right person to do that.
Thanks, Farouk, and thanks for all you're doing. Ambassador Muzina, if I can go back to you, if you could maybe tell us a bit more about how the Biden administration would renew its relationship with Bangladesh, and in particular, maybe talk about some of Bangladesh's biggest challenges and what a Biden administration would do to support economic development specifically.
Well, I think very much like the Obama-Biden administration, a Biden-Harris administration would understand that Bangladesh ain't no international basket case. It was once called that, if you can imagine that. No, Bangladesh, and I know this, I've lived there 6 years. Bangladesh is an economic powerhouse. Bangladesh is a rich country with many natural resources. But its number one resource is its people, because that's its greatest assets. These, oh my goodness, the Bangladeshi people are just amazing. They're so entrepreneurial. And I saw this for myself when I visited all 64 districts of that amazing country. And I saw the same thing as I reached out to the Bangladeshi American diaspora here in the United States. And I visited communities all across this country. And I saw, again, I saw the amazing things that Bangladeshis can do. In this case, how much they did contributing, they have done and continue to do, contributing to America. A Biden-Harris administration would treat Bangladesh with the respect that it commands. It's the 8th most populous country on the planet. It has the 4th largest Muslim population on the planet. It is a moderate country. A Biden-Harris administration would work with the people of Bangladesh to help Bangladesh realize its amazing potential to be, in my view, and I believe this fervently, in my view, to be Asia's next economic tiger. And a Biden-Harris administration would continue the work that we did under the Obama-Biden administration to help Bangladeshis improve the quality of their lives, to help Bangladeshis deepen respect for human rights, to partner with Bangladeshis to strengthen the democratic institutions of their beloved country. So I think a Biden-Harris administration would help Bangladesh shed forever this image, this false image, this image I so hate of Bangladesh as some poor international basket case. Instead, Bangladesh would become known as a real partner in bringing peace, in bringing stability, in bringing prosperity to a very troubled part of the world.
Thank you. That was really great. Ambassador Verma, if I could ask you, you're advising the Biden foreign policy team on South Asia issues sometimes. So would love your take on what you see to be kind of an evolving relationship with Bangladesh and China, and how the US might see that, as well as maybe comment a little bit on the Indo-Pacific strategy, which the Trump administration has championed, but really has basically ignored Bangladesh in the process. But it has focused on issues like energy cooperation and infrastructure. So I was wondering, looking forward for the Biden administration, what would be some top issues of focus, and also geopolitically how we would see the region?
Yeah, great set of questions. And Dan is the expert on this subject, but I am proud to have been to Bangladesh about 20 times or more. I've seen the Bangladeshi American community here in the United States. And again, I love what Dan said about treating Bangladesh as a partner with respect, an emerging power in Asia. That's how I've seen it firsthand on the ground, and that's how I know President Biden would build this relationship on its own merits, not through the prism of China and balancing, and not through the prism of any other country, but on its own. And yes, the Indo-Pacific strategy is critical. Part of that is a big focus on energy cooperation, our trade relationship, but also on global health security, working with Bangladesh on global health security. We wouldn't make the 1/3 cut in assistance to Bangladesh that this administration did. We would actually appoint an Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia, something we haven't had during the absolute duration of the Trump administration. And we would actually work on climate change together. We would come back into the Paris Climate Agreement. I saw, less than 10 days ago, Sheikh Hasina writing on the importance of international cooperation on fighting climate change, and how the Paris Climate Agreement was essential. Well, the Vice President has committed to being back in that. So I see, building on the good work that Dan and others have done, a full-scale partnership with Bangladesh, trade, security, climate change, health, and of course, increasing our people-to-people ties. And we can talk about immigration in a little bit, but every one of these bilateral relationships, particularly Bangladesh, is built on the people that are here in this country and working so hard to pull our two countries together.
Thank you, great answer. If I can go to Farouk, while we're all on international issues, maybe if you could talk a little bit about Vice President Biden's view on the Rohingya crisis. I know that Bangladesh has been kind of trying to resolve that issue for a while now, and he's spoken out about this issue in particular, and it relates to the Muslim minority in Myanmar that's now in Bangladesh in refugee camps. So just curious about his take on this issue, and looking forward how you think this will play out.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been very clear that the systematic discrimination and atrocities against the Rohingya Muslim minority it's abhorrent, and it undermines peace and stability, full stop. He's not just on this issue, but on other issues of Muslim majority countries. Countries that have Muslim minority populations, whether we look at the Uyghurs in China or other places. I mean, he's been very outspoken about the need to stand up for human rights and democracy. He has called for a democracy summit in his first year as president, where he will invite nations that will make significant commitments to fighting corruption, standing up against authoritarianism, and standing up for human rights. So if you actually go to the Muslim American agenda on our website, you'll see language that mirrors what I said, and he's taken a very strong position on that.
Great. And if I can ask you a follow-up question, because it also relates to international issues that Bangladeshi Americans are following closely. And it doesn't relate to Bangladesh, it relates to the Middle East, and I know that you're also kind of following those issues as well. But Bangladeshi Americans are following the issues in the Middle East really closely as far as the candidates go. And I know that a lot of them, through their support behind Senator Sanders because of his stance on the Israel-Palestine issue. So if I can just ask you to maybe briefly talk about how President Biden would engage Israelis and Palestinians and find a way for both parties to live together peacefully and champion a two-state solution.
Sure. No, that's a great question and an important one for a lot of the communities that we come from. And the vice president has also been clear here that he values the worth of every Palestinian and every Israeli. He wants to work to make sure that both Palestinians and Israelis enjoy equal measures of freedom, security, prosperity, and democracy. So what he's saying is that he believes in a two-state solution. He wants to bring both sides together so they can live together in peace, security, and mutual recognition. And he's been very clear that he opposes unilateral actions that either side would take to undermine a two-state solution. He opposed annexation of the West Bank. He opposes settlement expansion. And he's talked about restoring aid, economic and humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people, consistent with US law. He's talked about assistance to refugees, working to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, and even reopening the US consulate in East Jerusalem and working to reopen the PLO office in Washington. This current administration has taken many steps to undermine peace, and many of the things that Joe Biden has said he will do are reversing steps that this administration has taken. So he's been very clear about his desire to use his credibility with both sides to bring them back together to the negotiating table and to help the Palestinians achieve a state of their own.
Thanks, Farouk. Ambassador Mosina, if we can go back to your comments about Bangladesh's struggle with certain economic challenges while also being an economic powerhouse. We have a country that's obviously doing really well economically, 6 to 7% growth, but also there are some economic challenges. We need sort of poverty alleviation programs to continue to be supported. And we know that under President Trump, there has been a cut or suggestions of cut to some of these budgets that are really supporting critical programs. So if you could talk a little bit about some of the programs that you've seen work really well and you think could be a really sort of signature programs in the next administration.
Yeah, thanks, Shamrook. Well, I'll start off with the issue that Rich wisely raised, and that is the importance of addressing global climate change. I think we all know that Bangladesh is one of the countries most impacted, directly impacted, and not future tense, it's happening right now, most impacted by global climate change. It's a huge threat, and Biden-Harris administration would focus, it would stop denying the science of climate change and get serious about engaging with the world to confront climate change. Rich has already said, but I'm going to repeat, Biden-Harris would get America back into the Paris Climate Accord. That's where we should be. And we should be leader, global leader, in helping the world address the pollution that's driving this climate change. Stop this nonsense of denial and all this foolishness. We need to move fast. We need to move now before it's too late. Before it's too late for the world and before it's too late for Bangladesh. And Bangladesh, as I said, is right on the cutting edge of that. We also need to focus on the full spectrum of development partnership with the Bangladeshi people. There's this notion that development assistance to emerging countries is some kind of a giveaway, of an American handout. This is crazy. Helping people help themselves, give their people better lives, this is in the interest of America. There's no handout here. And so we need to help Bangladesh continue its impressive progress in improving food security, in improving health, slashing maternal mortality, child under 5 mortality. Unbelievable things are happening there. I saw this with my eyes. Turning back infectious diseases that used to be massive killers. We need to continue to help Bangladesh prepare for the emergencies, the cyclones and other disasters that strike all too frequently. Biden-Harris would understand that a Bangladesh, a Bangladesh that is peaceful, that is secure, that is prosperous, that is healthy, that is democratic. That Bangladesh is good not only for the people of Bangladesh, but that is good for America's security and prosperity. So you see this partnership, it goes hand in hand. And both the people of both countries are the winners. And that's why I am on this call, because I really believe that a Biden-Harris administration victory is essential to building the ties with the people of Bangladesh. I believe a Biden-Harris victory is essential to restore global respect for America. It's essential to America's resuming the leadership of the free world. It's essential to helping the global community, especially the emerging countries like Bangladesh that are just roaring forward, to address the continuing challenges of climate change. I'll start with that, of disease, of war, of refugees, of poverty, of hunger. The stakes, Shamaruk, are really high. The stakes are really high. And we must engage, we Americans, we must engage, we must work to ensure a Biden-Harris victory.
Thank you, Ambassador Mosina, for your comments. So we're running out of time, but I just wanted to ask a question that came in. This is going to Ambassador Verma. If you could talk a little bit about immigration, which is top of mind for a lot of Bangladeshi Americans. What would a Biden administration do on merit-based as well as family-based immigration, and how does it play towards America's strengths as well?
Yeah, thank you. And Shamaruk, my internet's a little unstable, so if you can't hear me, just wave your hand at some point. But look, the Vice President has recognized that we are a nation of immigrants. I've seen that in the staff he's built. I've just seen it as who he is as a person. And he's pledged to deliver on immigration reform. He's going to support family-based immigration by preserving family unification as a foundation for our immigration system, not throw it all away like President Trump. He'd be allowing any approved applicant to receive temporary non-immigrant visa until that visa is processed, and he would support legislation that treats spouses and children of green card holders as immediate relatives, exempting them from caps and allowing parents to bring their minor children at the time they immigrate. The Vice President firmly believes that the Bangladeshi American community benefits the economic, cultural, and social values of cities across the United States, unlike the current White House. And again, I'll just say, you know, my colleagues at the State Department, so many were Bangladeshi American, my colleagues in business and law, in the military, you know, they are our neighbors and been my friends. We need to be out there like Indian Americans, Pakistani Americans, all of us over the next 30 days, knocking on those doors, getting our friends and neighbors to do everything they can. This is such a critical election. So thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. Farouk, do you want to add anything on that and maybe on the inclusion aspect of all of this?
Just briefly, because I know we're short on time, that just to echo Ambassador Verma, this campaign has embraced diversity, and my job is to engage Muslim Americans. You've got Muslim Americans on our staff across the campaign in the States, on our domestic and foreign policy working groups. We've got dozens and dozens of Muslim Americans, because the Vice President understands that we need to all come together and that all of our communities play a pivotal role. So I'm really been very happy to see that on the campaign since I joined.
Thank you to all of you. We have a few other questions. We won't unfortunately get to all the questions. We're running a little bit short on time, but one comment that also came in is about technology cooperation and the hope that there would be greater technology cooperation between the US and Bangladesh, and how that relates to immigration as well in terms of the immigration of high-skilled workers. So I just wanted to share that thought, and thank you to all of you for joining today. I know that our time is short and there's so much to talk about, but we hope to stay engaged, and we look forward to seeing you soon in other occasions. Thanks for making the time. I
Thank
will
you.
welcome the next panel now. If you could all turn your cameras on. Great. Thank you to all of you for being here. And this is our powerhouse Bangladeshi American women's panel, so I'm really excited. We'll be talking about some domestic issues that affect Bangladeshi Americans, as well as how to best get out the vote. We have Nina Ahmed. So Dr. Nina Ahmed is the groundbreaking Democratic nominee for the Office of Auditor General in Pennsylvania, and the first person of color and South Asian immigrant to be a candidate for the statewide executive office. Really impressed with the campaign you've been running so far. Then we have Nabila Islam, who's a former congressional candidate for Georgia's 7th District and is the founder of the Progressive List, which is an organization that helps progressive candidates raise funds and be more visible. She's also the national organizing director for Matriarch, which is the women-led organization recruiting progressive working class women. We also have Rumana Ahmed, who is an alum of the Obama administration. She's a communications and strategy consultant. She is focused on the impacts of social media as it relates to hate speech and misinformation. She's a Harvard Center for Public Leadership Fellow and graduate of the Harvard Kennedy School. And as an alum of the Obama administration, her focus areas were global engagement and strategic communications. She worked in the National Security Council on a number of issues. So thanks to all of you for making the time and being here. So if I could ask the same question to each of you again, why do you care about this campaign? And also if you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you're running for office, for example, Nina, and what drives you if you've worked in administration or previously run for office. So we'll start with Nina.
Thank you so much. This is a great forum. It is wonderful to be with these powerful women on this panel. And you know, I am sure Nabila is going to do big things coming up, and we'll see Rumana in the next administration. Let's make it the Biden-Harris administration, because that's the administration that actually sees us and serves us. I am, you know, so impressed with the outreach that has been happening into these communities like ours. You know, we are a tiny portion of the electorate, and yet here we are having a, you know, an event on the Biden-Harris platform to do this. So that speaks to the fact that they are making sure that they go to every community that makes up this mosaic of America. I am running to be the next Auditor General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm the Democratic nominee. I cleared the primary, a 6-person primary, in which I was the only immigrant, only brown immigrant. We had 2 white men, a white woman, 2 black women, and myself. And the fact that I won, and I won by such a big margin, really speaks to the fact that what Dr. Martin Luther King said, that we need to be judged on the content of our character and not the color of our skin, proved true in Pennsylvania amongst our Democrats. We're going to make that happen across Pennsylvania and win those 20 electoral votes to send the Biden-Harris ticket to office, and that'll actually show the country that 80% white state like Pennsylvania, which is the 5th most populous state, is electing a brown Muslim immigrant. That says something, that not only is the Democratic Party the big tent party, but America is looking to reflect you and me, who serve so diligently, you know, contribute to the tax base. We are good citizens here, and it's time we had a seat at the table, and we're going to definitely have a seat at the table. So I am excited for so many reasons. But the main thing is having representation. So when you have a Kamala Harris, even though she's, you know, Indian American in heritage and Black American, she knows what it is to be South Asian. You know, she understands the struggles her mother faced as a scientist, much like me, who came in and was judged before she opened her mouth, and on her accent also, that maybe she was not as, you know, brilliant as she was. We can't let that happen. I have children, and I am doing this for them and for all of us on this call and who are within, you know, hearing range, that we can make a change, and we belong here, and we are going to be first-class citizens. So that's why I am running for this office, and that's why I'm supporting the Biden-Harris ticket.
Thank you, Nina, for your inspiring words. We're all sitting here admiring you and hope we can do everything we can for your campaign. And we'll go to Nabila next. If you could maybe tell us about yourself and why you care about this ticket.
Absolutely. Shamrook, thank you so much for including me. And Nina, you were such an inspiration. I'm so excited about your election. And Rumana, I've been following your career. Thank you for your courage and everything that you do. Again, my name is Nabila Islam. I'm the daughter of Bangladeshi immigrants. My dad was born in Kalabagan in Dhaka, and my mom is from Noakhali, from Grama, a village. And they both came here seeking the American dream and to give me an opportunity in a life that they never had. I'm actually the first person in my family to graduate from college. I grew up in Gwinnett County, which is the fourth most diverse county in the entire country in the state of Georgia. And I've been working in politics for the last 10 years since I was 21. So just aged myself right there. And I was very inspired to run for office just this past, actually since February 2019 until June of 2020, to give my community a voice it's never had. You know, so often our Bangladeshi community will encourage, the children to become a doctor and a lawyer and an engineer, but we're never really encouraged to become leaders of our own community. And what I saw growing up was, if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. And so I ran a very progressive campaign to give my community a voice that it's never had, because I believe that we need to have reflective representation of our diversity and our values. And some of the reasons that I support the Biden-Harris ticket is because they're fighting for some of the same things that I fought for my community. I'll talk about some of the policies. I mean, they're going to fight for a $15 federal minimum wage. They're going to fight for universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, including childcare, tuition, which is, I have so much college debt right now, and they're going to fight for tuition-free college for households with incomes less than $125,000, which is so incredibly important for the Gen Z and the millennial generation. They're also going to fight for criminal justice reform. I mean, they're going to decriminalize cannabis and expunge convictions, also launch a police oversight commission, and reform qualified immunity. And something that's very important in Georgia is restoring the Voting Rights Act. Voter suppression here is very rampant. And I love the fact that Biden-Harris administration has put forward a plan to combat the climate crisis that is bold and that matches the scale of the problem that is the climate crisis. And so I'm supporting them because they support progress, and I'm excited to help them get elected.
Great, thank you, Nabila. Rumana?
No, thank you so much for having me, and I will repeat to say the same thing about Nabila and Nina. Definitely wishing you both immense luck, and very, very proud to see, women of color like you all doing what you're doing. I think I have a very similar story to others on this panel as well. Also a daughter of Bangladeshi immigrants. And for me, actually, I grew up not caring so much about politics. I think many of us have seen this, right? We hear all of our relatives sitting on couches, pointing fingers and blaming others. And it wasn't until I accidentally ended up in government as an intern to start off with that I really started to understand the power of, as Nabila said, and I say this actually whenever I speak to young people, which is the power of being at the table and not just on the menu for other people to decide on of what's going to happen to you. And I actually, for the first time, realized that it's the easy, lazy route to just sit around and point fingers and not actually do something about it. And we're past that. It's really important for every single one of us to be taking our part. And I know quite often it's easy to say, well, the government should be doing more for us. Absolutely. But that's going to require us as communities also stepping in to do more. And that's something that I witnessed firsthand. And, even I'm thinking about right now, how important it is for us to speak up, to be engaged. I also grew up in a family where I was encouraged to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. However, it was once I was in that space that even my mother now goes around telling people we need to encourage more of our kids to be in politics, to be in government, because that's actually another way that we can be serving our communities just as much as you can when you are a doctor. And these are things that we need to start ingraining within our families, this idea that, and I think all of our immigrant families and parents, and those of us who are children of immigrants, we understand that it requires hard work. We don't need anyone to tell us that. It requires hard work. And with that difficulty is what comes, the success and the ease. And, you know, even in the situation that we are in right now, like with this pandemic, it's like we all care about our family's health, right? Like we care about our protection. Well, just as much as our healthcare is our right, so is our vote. Our vote is our voice. It's our right. It's our duty. And it's something that we are going to have to work very hard for. So I'm really excited, you know, in this discussion to really talk about what each and every one of us should be doing, no matter whether or not we agree with everything that, you know, a Biden-Harris ticket stands for. And that's something that I experienced firsthand. I had so many people ask me, how can you be working for an Obama administration? Aren't you against this and that and that? And I'm like, yeah, I do have perspectives on those, but you can have more of an impact being on the inside and partnering with communities who are well organized on the outside to actually be able to influence us. Until that happens, none of those issues are going to change. None of those candidates are going to change their position. That being said, I know for a fact that Biden and Harris have positions that are powerful that I absolutely agree with. I was fortunate enough actually to work with then Vice President Biden on bringing together young, you know, Muslim Americans, Palestinian Americans, Bangladeshi Americans. We did a youth entrepreneurship summit with him at the White House. I also organized a youth roundtable for him in Morocco to kind of bring together global young women and youth leaders as well. And I know it's something that he cares about. And I think that is what's so important in this election. And I really shouldn't have to convince anyone, but again, very excited to talk more about it.
Thank you, Rumana. Thank you all. These were great insights. Just pivoting to the issue of entrepreneurship, since you brought that up, Rumana, if I could ask Nina, how do you think the Biden administration would support jobs and entrepreneurship for Bangladeshi Americans here in the US? Or you're on mute. Yeah,
I'm unmuted now. The first is actually, you know, our Bangladeshi American community, unlike many other parts of the Asian community, are not as economically well positioned, many of us. And when we look at the Biden-Harris plan for middle class and working families, they really reflect the needs, right? So I think Nabila mentioned the child credit, that child tax credits. There's a few number of these tax credits that will really go to help people who are, you know, struggling right now, particularly with this COVID pandemic, all these cracks in our economy and how it's impacting people who have to work for a living, you know, who aren't the big corporate heads or are big, you know, the big well-positioned entrepreneurs. So we have to think of that. We have to think of the small business run, which has, you know, a small footprint. Those are the kinds of people who will really benefit from both the child tax credit, which is, I'll give specifics so people know what we're talking about, $3,000 for people with a child between 6 and 17, and $3,600 for children under 6, right? So that's huge. That's every month you can get a relief for, you know, having to take care of children. There's a child care tax credit as well that's going to be expanded. There's a tax credit for people taking care of their elder family members. You know, we come from a community where we take care of our parents. Both my parents lived with me till they passed away. You know, so when you're part of the generation that has children themselves and you have parents you're taking care of, that becomes critical. Is going to have a tax credit for healthcare to make sure that no one pays more than 8.5% of their income for healthcare. We would like that to be zero because I believe in child healthcare as a universal and human right. We're going to get there, but we have to start where we are. And I think there's a slew of things, including you know, investment in the small business arena, where they are going to be putting way more money into it. So the Small Business Administration actually delivers those. It's just in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the things I want to do as Auditor General is to take a clear look at what exactly are the SBA advantages, where are they going, and which communities are benefiting. You know, sometimes if you don't know how to access these services, if you have any language barriers, if you've never done this before and you're just starting a business, I want to make sure our government actually takes all these resources that the federal government is sending us and make them actionable and put them into communities who can see and hear and understand them and then use them to benefit themselves. So I am very hopeful, having served President Obama on the Asian American and Pacific Islander Commission. I know how representation matters. And we were actually engaged with different departments within the federal government to see how they were serving the Asian American community. And were they disaggregating the data that makes up who we are? That umbrella term means nothing to an immigrant. You know, you come from Bangladesh or you come from China, you're not Asian American and Pacific Islander. That term is a political term to give us strength because we're small in numbers. So to have governments that understand that, unpack that, and then see our separate discrete communities within that is very important. I know that President Biden will do that because he was part of an administration that did that, and I served that administration. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to see prosperity reach places that have been overlooked and left behind. We're not going to let that happen.
Great, Nina. Great kind of hope for the future. And I hope that people will also participate in the census, which is really important as well. So if I could go to the question of healthcare, which you brought up as well, and maybe I'll ask both Nabila and Rumana if you could talk a little bit about the healthcare outlook for immigrant communities. I know that people of color are even more vulnerable to health issues, especially now in the middle of the pandemic. So how do you think the Biden-Harris administration would reform healthcare, and what are some of the basic issues that we're discussing in terms of what needs to be done?
Yeah, well, actually during the Biden-Obama administration, ACA, the healthcare enrollment, it was kind of the phase one. And one thing that even, Biden and Obama, they all acknowledge is that there were so many spaces for improvement. And I think that's what gets me really excited about a Biden-Harris administration is like, you're not starting from scratch. It's a continuation to improve where the improvements are necessary. I think especially right now, while we're in a global pandemic, one of the things that I learned and really appreciated that was done in the previous administration, with Biden there as well, was making sure we did a very, very targeted outreach to various communities, to women, to immigrant communities, to young people, because everyone is affected differently by health issues and by health accessibility. I think for those who are joining from Michigan will know that, Access Michigan was a really, really major and important institution that we partnered with to make sure that every community understood how these new policies are going to affect them. And it also became a venue for them to air what concerns they had or what more they needed. And what excites me about a Biden-Harris administration is that it's now an opportunity to take that next step, that next phase, to ensure that we are being more targeted in our policies to really helping people to what issues they need to be helped with. And especially in the midst of this pandemic, there is going to come a point once a vaccine is ready that every community should be able to understand and have very clear communication of how do I get access to it? How will it affect me? What are my needs? And is every community getting the access they need? Do they have the information that they need? And that's something that I personally was just really amazed by and was very proud to be a part of, was that extensive outreach effort. I mean, just with the Muslim American community, we organized 40 events across the nation within a month, and it like through mosques, through community centers, through access. And that's going to need to be done with this pandemic as we move closer towards hopefully the end of it, but also to, having vaccines out there. And I don't have to tell you, but that is going to require real leadership where there is actual true transparency, but also value for our immigrant communities. If there isn't value for our immigrant communities, no one is going to care to ensure that our communities have the information and the tools and the resources that they need, especially in the midst of this pandemic.
When it comes to healthcare, one of the issues that's near and dear to my heart is Medicaid expansion. I am from one of 14 states, the state of Georgia, that has not expanded Medicaid because our governors want to play politics and put politics over the lives of people. And so that's about 4.9 million people in this country that don't have health care because they're not covered by Medicaid. And one of the things that I'm excited about in regard to the Biden-Harris healthcare plan is that through the public option, they're going to ensure that folks are covered by offering them premium-free access to the public option, which will cover 5 million people. And so the folks that are not being covered right now will have coverage. And in my district, the folks that don't have health care are predominantly working people, Black and brown people, low-income people. It's a huge portion of it is the immigrant population. I myself did not have health insurance and did not qualify for Medicaid, because in the state of Georgia, you can't if you're an able-bodied person without children. And so I'm looking forward to fixing this issue and making sure that we expand coverage to as many folks as we can.
And I think representation is such an important part of that, because you need people to represent these issues when decisions are being made. So thank you for all your efforts on that. I have a final question for all of you, whoever wants to take this, but we don't have a lot of Trump supporters in the Bangladeshi American community, thankfully, but we do have people who feel that maybe this administration wouldn't be progressive enough, the Biden-Harris administration, and have considered sitting out the election. So just wondering if you could talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why it's so important to vote as well as mobilize, and how we can actually push the ball forward if we have people in office who will listen, just from your own views. So we'll start.
We have to underscore that, very simply put, Trump lies, we die. I lost a cousin in this COVID pandemic. He was a physician who was treating geriatric patients, and he was able-bodied, and he died. And he knew all how to access things, and he still died, right? So this is a fundamental truth, I feel, that has happened over these last 4 years that we've understood, that this current administration really doesn't value us, doesn't want us here. They have made changes. They're actually looking at naturalized citizen applications going back 30, 40 years, which means we're at risk, So they have made it a priority to look at immigrants and folks, first and second generation immigrants who look like us, had a Muslim ban. We had a huge uprising at the beginning of when he established the Muslim ban. We had 5,000 people show up at the Philadelphia airport, along with our mayor, our senior senator, because it was just, we couldn't believe that was happening. So this is real, life and death. And if people don't understand, particularly Bangladeshi Americans, who might be Trump folks or don't understand that we're not progressive enough. There are people who are dying and will continue to die if we have another 4 years. So please make it, hold everybody accountable once they're in office. I'm not saying, just like Rumana said, you don't have to agree with everything. You can fight for that. You can make changes after we're in office. But you have to allow for people to be in office who actually value every American, right? Value everybody, whatever your status is, immigration status. We need our DACA back. There's so many of our Bangladeshi American people who get caught in that conundrum. We have to address those things. So if you care about people, you want to put Biden-Harris in place, because it's people over profit.
I'd like to add, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Yes.
To echo what Rumana said earlier, you're not going to agree with every single thing, but it's so important that we continue the progress. Instead of combating a president that wants to build a wall in between Mexico and the United States, we can have a Biden-Harris administration that will take immigration policy seriously and find a path to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people, reinstate DACA and allow new applicants to apply. And when it comes to healthcare, the current administration is trying to gut our healthcare, and it has no plan to replace it with anything. Not that I've seen anything yet. And we also need to look at the climate crisis that we're in. It's the biggest national security threat that we have. And the current administration doesn't believe in science, doesn't believe that climate change is real. And a Biden-Harris administration will devote $2 trillion in combating the climate crisis and invest that into our economy. And one of the things that I really liked was, I'd love to highlight, is that they're going to establish an Office of Environment and Climate Justice at the Justice Department, which will look at past policies that have affected Black and Brown communities, immigrant communities, and how they've failed them and address those issues. And so we need to fight for this administration and get them elected, because you know, our livelihoods, our families depend on the next 4 years having a path towards progress instead of destruction like the current administration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just add to the points that have already been made that, you know, just like how for whoever out there is still debating who to vote for, whether you want more progressive or more conservative. I actually happen to know some Bangladeshi Americans who do support Trump, but I unfortunately also know a lot of people who are still saying, I'm not sure what I want to do. The fact of the matter is that whatever the issue is that you still feel strongly about, that you feel like it's not being addressed well enough, that's actually at the end of the day on you. It's on us as a community to really move the needle on those issues. I can tell you openly that one of my personal frustrations when I was in the administration was I very rarely had communities, like organized communities, to lean on, to push on issues when I saw it come up. One of the things that I was very grateful for near the end of the Obama administration was there was actually a very strong Bangladeshi American community that was becoming very well organized around the Rohingya refugee issue. And that really gave so much power on the inside to bring those voices in and try to push on those issues and lift it up. And just like having a voice on these issues and being able to push it is on us, not voting is going to be on you. And the repercussions of that is going to be on you. There are stark differences here. If Trump wins again, we know 100%, because we've already seen what happened in the last 4 years. It will only get worse for our communities, but also our country, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on healthcare, whether it's on the Muslim ban. I can keep on going with the list. There's no question about that. With a Biden administration, I know firsthand that you're not going to have those same issues. Absolutely not. Will it be perfect? Well, it can be if we're all playing our role and the part that we're responsible for to push on the issues that we care about. And that's going to take more than just putting in your vote. You're putting in your vote is step one, but it's also going to be calling up your relatives, which even my very Bangladeshi mother gets on the phone and calls all of her brothers and sisters to be like, we need to, and she never did this before. And she is more on top of it now than so many others. And I think each and every one of us have a responsibility for that, because if we end up with another Trump administration, do know that that is on you. That is on every single one of us for not having done enough. Whether it's getting out the vote, whether it's calling people and encouraging them to, making them understand that just as we don't like being silenced because of maybe one position that we have, that we can't do the same on an administration, that, well, just because they're not good enough on this one or two issues, then we're gonna just cancel them out completely. We can't play by those same rules, and we shouldn't. So, you know, this election is so critical, and, you know, it's obvious to me, but I understand that there's people out there who are unsure, but that is an unacceptable position to be at this point. And my hope is that we will all we will be more organized. I mean, it's like I said again, like, it's so great to see Nabila and Nina, you know, running for office, but it's like we need to see more of that. We need to see more people within the administration who look like us, not just look like us, but bring the experience and perspectives that we have. We need more communities to be organized on the various issues that have been talked about in this panel, because that's how you're going to push the needle forward on those issues going down the road. And it's going to take time. It's going to take hard work. And we're all not new to understanding that change takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's going to require all of us acting and playing our role.
Wise words. Thank you, Rumana. And I think that all of you couldn't have said it better. So thank you for being here, for making the time out of your busy schedules. I'm sorry that to the listeners that we couldn't get to all of the issues that you care about, but we'll reserve those questions for later for hopefully other events. And I wish you luck, Nina, in your campaign, and let us know what else we can do for you. And Nabila and Rumana, thank you for being here so much, and we hope to stay engaged with you. We have a question that just came in that I'll post to the next speaker that we have, because it's about Bangladeshis in swing states and how we can actually persuade Trump voters who are of Bangladeshi origin. So I'll post that to Vidya, who will be joining us next. But thanks to all of you. And also, if I could ask now for the audience to type into the chat box why you care about this administration, and just type in your answer, as many entries as you'd like. So thank you, all of you. See you later. And we'll make an introduction to Vidya shortly, but please, this is your time to chime in and tell us why you care about this administration. Just focus on maybe the values that matter to you and why you think, what kind of things you'd like to see change. Thank you everyone for sharing your views. It's really inspiring to hear where everyone's coming from. And now we'll have a training session on how you can get out the vote yourself. And this effort will be focused on Michigan. We have an organizer from Michigan, Vidya Jayadev, who will run through what to do. And I think you just have to have your computer and your phone with you. And just from my own perspective, I think it's just really critical right now to help people to register to vote, to volunteer, to tell people about polling locations, deadlines. If you're anxious in any way about this election, I'm telling you that if you do something to volunteer, it just melts away that anxiety. And I think that voters are looking for that personal connection. So to whatever extent you can connect with voters, I think that's kind of the best way to go. So I'll say my goodbyes here. Thank you all for joining. And now I'll turn it over to Vidya. Vidya was born and raised in Rochester, New York, and graduated from Ohio State with a degree in public policy and political science. And she's been organizing for this campaign for a while. And Vidya, can you take it away?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to get to talk to all of you about what we can do ourselves to get out the vote and make sure that we're contacting every voter possible. So I have is there any way I can share my screen? I think it says I can't do it while someone else is sharing.
I'll turn mine off, I think that will.
Okay, perfect. Well, in any case, really excited to talk to you all about how we can get the vote out today. And while we wait to see, I think I can go ahead and do it right now. Can people see my screen? I have a couple slides up.
We can.
Perfect. All right. Well, I will get started. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. Like it was said earlier, I am an organizer with the Michigan Democratic Party. I work in Rochester and Rochester Hills, which is just north of Detroit. I've worked on coordinated campaigns all over the Midwest and a couple congressional races in New York. Very excited to be here today facilitating all of this. So it's been said, but a lot of very important things are on the ballot this November. A government that has an effective pandemic response. And in the last couple of days, I mean, we've seen just the horrible mismanagement, the amount of people that have been put at risk by this administration, just in DC alone, but just the lawmakers alone who have been put at risk. And I think every story that you don't hear is someone who walked by them on the street, or maybe, brought them coffee at a coffee shop, or, drove them in an Uber. And we want to make sure we have thoughtful government that thinks of people besides themselves, especially in the face of a pandemic. Quality public education. I know that's something that actually really motivated me to get involved with electoral politics, just because public education has been so important to me and to my family's story in the United States. gun violence prevention, definitely an issue that, you know, has mobilized a lot of people and really gotten them involved with politics for the first time. And, you know, even after Senator Harris was announced as vice president, we've just seen an uptick in sort of this racial news coverage and the words that people say about her, and, you know, even the president himself. Why we need your help in Michigan and in other battleground states. You know, there's a number of important states, but Michigan is definitely shaping up to be one of the really key stops in the road to the White House. Statewide, we only lost Michigan by 2 votes per precinct in 2016, so not very many at all. You know, that is definitely a margin we can make up. That's a margin we can absolutely turn out enough people to rectify. We also have a number of targeted congressional races that, you know, are definitely going to take some work to make sure we can turn every single voter out. And we only need to flip 4, or yeah, I believe it's 4 actually, Republican-held seats in order to take control of the Michigan State House and ensure that we can pass, you know, a progressive agenda and support Governor Whitmer in the work that she's doing. The reason that we need volunteers to do this is because you are the best messengers to talk to voters about Joe Biden and Democrats up and down the ballot. And I think that's something that rings doubly true when we're looking at constituencies and specific groups that have been left out of the political process for a long time. And I think South Asians are such a good example of one of those groups. In Michigan alone, there's over 125,000 South Asian voters who I think will be really key to any coalition, you know, to win the White House and to enact the progressive policies that we've talked about. And when you have someone on the other end of the phone who understands the world that you know, in the way you do, who has walked in your shoes or comes from a place where they can build that bridge with you, it's always more effective. And I've been so lucky to get to see that in my work, specifically with South Asian groups in the suburban Detroit area. And I'm really excited to have all of you get a chance to do that as well. Another tip that I just want to remind everyone of is that, you know, every person here is an effective organizer for change in their own right. You know, we all have our own personal networks, whether that's our family, whether that's clubs we're a part of, colleagues, fellow students, you know, online friends, followers, that sort of thing. We all have a network that we can tap into. And, you know, sometimes the most effective organizing comes from talking to the people that we know and making sure that they're registered to vote, that they have a plan, whether they're voting by mail, whether they are early in-person voting, whatever that is. It's definitely still something we can do no matter who we are, no matter where we live, because we're not just ourselves on our own. We're always a part of a greater network that we can tap into. We'll be talking to Bangladeshi voters in Hamtramck today, which is a part of Metro Detroit. And these are who we consider potential Democratic voters. So they're either voters that have you know, voted with us in the past, or they voted in a Democratic presidential primary. Today, we'd like to do 50 dials. That usually takes about somewhere in the realm of 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how efficiently you're dialing or if you're taking any breaks, anything like that. And the other objective is just direct contact with Michigan voters, making sure that we can have these one-on-one conversations that mobilize people, whether that's persuading them to vote for Joe Biden and Senator Harris, or whether that's, you know, making sure that they have a plan and that they're all set to go if they already support our candidate. As you can see here, lots of different reasons that we're talking to these voters, just like I mentioned. One thing that we'll have to do is create an action ID. So this should be in the email that you received. It's basically just a security check so we can make sure that the people opening the phone bank link are the people that are meant to see it, like yourselves. So it just takes a minute or two. You'll just quickly create an account. If you phone banked in the past, you most likely already have an existing action ID, and you can just use that again. And then, pretty simple to get started. All you're gonna do is click the link in the email that you were sent earlier, where you'll find the actual open virtual phone bank link. You'll just click on that and then select Get Started, and that will log you into our system. Very, very simple system to use, very intuitive. What you'll do is actually just dial the number that you see on your screen. The average phone banker tends to reach about 10 to 20% of the people they call, but we've definitely seen a higher contact rate in the last couple of months. So please don't be discouraged if they don't pick up. It's still really valuable data for us, and it still helps us chip away at the amount of people that we want to reach out to and need to reach out to in order to flip Michigan blue in November. If they don't pick up, what you're going to do is select the tab that says I couldn't reach and then their name. You'll click on that, and then there's a couple options. We'll go through what you should select for each relevant conversation. For not home, that's if either you get their answering machine or a family member picks up, lets you know they're not available. Refused is if they ask you to take them off the list. They don't want calls, things like that. We won't be leaving messages today, so you don't need to worry about that. Wrong number is if the number does not belong to the voter in our system, and that's the case even if it's a family member. So whether it's a complete stranger who answers the phone or it is, say their daughter, their sister, or something like that, we'll tag it as wrong number because we know that's not the most efficient way to reach them. Finally, we have disconnected. So that is if the number is no longer in service or it is, you get an automated message that lets you know it's disconnected. We also have a languages tab. So we have specific tabs for Spanish and Arabic, so we can get our volunteers and organizers who fluently speak those languages to be able to contact those voters, or other language if they do let you know they prefer us to contact them in a different way that's more accessible for them. If they do pick up, we will follow the script that's embedded in the phone bank. And so it'll be right on that website. You don't need another file. You can just have the website open and the script will be right below their number. There's a number of questions. For every question that they answer, you'll select their response from a drop-down menu that'll be on the website. That lets us know the actual data that they respond with. So that's the really valuable part. And we want to make sure we're doing that as we go through, because that's the data that really helps inform our field plans. If they do have any additional information for you, any maybe friends who would be interested in volunteering or, specific things, it's best to call them on certain days or certain times. There's a note section at the bottom, and we use that for any additional information. So you can go ahead and toss a note in there and it'll get uploaded back to our system. If they ask a question and you don't know the answer, totally all right. I would just note that in the note section so we can get back to them and make sure that they have all the answers they need and are set to go. We always want to be respectful and courteous. When they go low, we go high. And then finally, once you're all done with the conversation, you'll click Save and Next Call to move on to the next person. Now I just want to go over our script. It's pretty simple. 5 main questions that we are asking. First, we want to create that personal connection, let them know your name, that you're calling with the Michigan Democratic Party, the Biden campaign. And we first ask if they'll be supporting Joe Biden in the upcoming election. We also are going to ask if they'll be supporting Senator Gary Peters. Gary Peters is the Democratic incumbent here in Michigan, and we want to make sure we protect his seat. There's so many important reasons as to why, but he's been a real champion for Michigan residents in the Senate. Everything from lowering prescription drug prices to environmental conservation, climate justice with our Great Lakes. So very important that we protect his seat. We also want to ask if they'll be voting absentee this election. So that's if they're planning to vote by mail. It lets us know that we need to follow up with them to make sure that they received and were able to return their ballot with no problems. If they answer positively to the first 2 questions, we'll ask if they're willing to volunteer with our Michigan Democratic Party team. We are always growing every single day and we always have more work to be done. So the more people we can get in the door, the better. If they aren't sure sort of where they stand, I know we talked earlier about people who are still undecided. We ask what issue is most important to them. And there's a whole host of options that we have that you can tag. Everything ranging from racism to COVID-19 to public education to LGBTQ plus issues, just to name a couple. So there's a really wide range and you can select whatever option is most appropriate for what they say. In the script, it asks you to, share your experiences, why you're passionate. And I saw a lot of great reasons in the chat. We want to try to build that bridge. We want to try to make a connection with them and talk to them about why we feel that the Biden-Harris administration is the best to tackle the issues that matter to them. So that's really important. If we ever run across anyone who's not sure where they lean, I saw that question earlier, the best way we can get across to them is by talking to them about the things that matter to them and building connections with them as to why our team is the ones best suited to solve these issues. A couple of best practices. Feel free to say you don't know if they ask a question that you don't have the answer to, but we always want to follow up the resource. If it's a question about voting, I recommend directing them to the Michigan Secretary of State's website. So that can be found at mi.gov/vote, or they can just Google Secretary of State Michigan and it should pop up. If they have a question about policy, I direct them to the Biden campaign's website. They have a great comprehensive policy plan there. We don't want to give out any potentially false information, and we definitely don't want to go down sort of the hot topic rabbit hole and debate people. We always want to be respectful, make people feel heard, even if they're not where we wish they could be. We always want to find that common ground. Even if we don't agree on everything, we want to build a connection and make them think, oh, you know, I never thought of it that way before. You know, oh, like this gives me something to think about. I've had a lot of success with people who previously agreed with me on nothing, getting them to agree the first 10% because the next 90% comes a lot easier. We don't want to disengage. You know, we don't want to let them think that we don't care. If anyone is, however, aggressive, rude, hostile, anything like that, it's totally okay to de-escalate the situation, thank them for their time and wish them a nice rest of their day. It's not your job to debate anyone. We don't want you to feel like you are forced to win someone over or convince someone. We always catch more flies with honey than we do with vinegar. And I believe that is the end of my slides. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure what the structure looks like, but I'm happy to answer any questions if I can be of any help. Does anyone have any questions I can answer in the chat? I don't see any, but. All right, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Vidya. That was really helpful, and I'm sure people are still digesting some of this information and can reach out to you or the campaign for more help. And thanks for the resources online as well. So with that, I guess we'll say our goodbyes, and I hope you stay engaged and help us make calls and volunteer in as many ways as you can. So thank you for devoting your Saturday afternoon to this, and hope to see everyone soon. Goodbye.